The massive space station hung in the darkness like a metal city. It was bigger than most planets and home to thousands of different alien species. This was the Galactic Council Station, the most important place in the galaxy. Today, something very unusual was happening. Captain Lee Day walked through the long corridors of the station. His black uniform marked him as a human military officer. Other aliens moved away from him as he passed. Some looked scared, others looked angry. Lee Day kept his face calm, but inside he felt worried. The humans had been called to an emergency meeting. This had never happened before in the 300 years since humans first met other alien races. Lee Day knew this could only mean trouble. He reached the main council chamber and stopped. The room was huge, with seats for representatives from 847 different species. Every seat was full today. The air buzzed with nervous energy from hundreds of different alien voices talking at once. Ambassador Park Yuna was already sitting in the human section. She was a small woman with gray hair and smart eyes. She had spent 20 years talking to aliens and making deals for Earth. Lee Day had never seen her look worried before. Today, she looked very worried. "What do you think this is about?" Lee Day asked as he sat down next to her. Park Yuna shook her head. "Nothing good. The Zenthari called this meeting. They never call emergency meetings unless something big is happening." Commander Choi Bin joined them a few minutes later. He was the leader of Earth's defense fleet and looked like he could fight a bear with his bare hands. Even he seemed nervous. "My ships are ready," Choi Bin said quietly. "But if all these species work together against us, we have a big problem." A loud sound filled the chamber. Everyone became quiet. High Arbitrator Velthak of the Zenthari Empire stood up from the center platform. The Zenthari looked like giant lizards that walked on two legs. Velthak was old, even for his species, and very powerful. "Today we speak of a great danger to our galaxy," Velthak said. His voice was deep and scary. "A danger that grows stronger every day. A danger that threatens everything we have built over 3,000 years. The chamber was completely silent. Now, Lee Day felt his heart beating fast. "This danger is the human species," Velthak continued. "In only 150 years, they have spread from one world to 47 star systems. They fight wars that other species would never start. They take risks that no smart species would take. They refuse to follow the rules that keep our galaxy peaceful." Angry voices started shouting from many different sections. Some aliens agreed with Velthak. Others seemed to disagree. Lee Day noticed that most of the angry voices were coming from species that had fought wars with humans. Velthak raised his hand and everyone became quiet again. "The council has made a decision. The humans must accept the genetic compliance protocols within 30 standard days." Lee Day felt his blood turn cold. He had heard of these protocols before. They were used on species that the council thought were too dangerous. "The protocols will limit human reproduction to council-approved levels," Velthak continued. "Humans will be restricted to 12 star systems. All human military personnel will have neural inhibitors placed in their brains to control their aggressive behavior." Park Yuna stood up slowly. Her face was calm, but Lee Day could see anger in her eyes. "High Arbitrator," she said in a clear voice, "may I ask what will happen if humanity refuses these protocols?" A strange sound filled the chamber. It took Lee Day a moment to realize that many aliens were laughing. The idea that humans might refuse seemed funny to them. Velthak's lizard face showed what might have been a smile. "No species has ever refused a unanimous council directive, Ambassador Park. In 3,000 years of council history, it has never happened." "But what if we did refuse?" Park Yuna asked again. The laughter stopped. Velthak's smile disappeared. "Then the council would have no choice but to enforce compliance through military action." The combined fleets of the galaxy would ensure that humanity follows the will of the Council. Park Yuna nodded slowly. She looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces. Most looked confident that humans would accept the protocols. Some looked hopeful that humans would refuse, so they could be destroyed. "High Arbitrator," Park Yuna said, "I need to communicate with my government on Earth. How much time do we have to give our answer?" 30 standard days, Velthak said. "Not one day more." "Thank you," Park Yuna said. She sat down and looked straight ahead. Li Day leaned over to whisper to her. "Ambassador, what are we going to do?" Park Yuna was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the Council was already moving on to other business, as if the human question was already settled. "We are going to refuse," she said quietly. Choi Bin leaned forward. "Do you know what that means?" "They will send every warship in the galaxy against us." "Yes," Park Yuna said. "I know exactly what it means." Li Day felt scared, but also proud. Humans had always been fighters. They had never backed down from a challenge, even when the odds were impossible. The meeting continued for several more hours, but Li Day barely listened. His mind was thinking about what would happen next. In 30 days, humanity would either submit to being controlled by aliens, or they would face the biggest war in galactic history. When the meeting finally ended, the three humans walked together toward their ship. Other aliens watched them go. Some looked sorry for them. Others looked excited about the coming war. "Do you really think Earth will refuse?" Choi Bin asked. Park Yuna stopped walking and turned to face both men. "Commander, in your military experience, what happens when you try to put a chain on a wild animal?" Choi Bin thought for a moment. "The animal fights back, usually harder than you expected." "Exactly," Park Yuna said. "The Council thinks they know what humans are. They think we are just another species that can be controlled and managed. They are about to learn that they are very wrong." They continued walking toward their ship. Behind them, the Council chamber buzzed with excitement. The aliens thought they had solved their human problem. They had no idea that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. As their ship prepared to leave the station, Li Day looked back at the massive structure. In 30 days, everything would change. The galaxy would learn what happened when you tried to chain humanity. The wild animal was about to show its teeth. 25 days had passed since the Council gave humanity their ultimatum. Across the galaxy, the biggest military force in history was gathering. Ships from dozens of different species filled space near the Council station. There were sleek Valian cruisers, massive Corvan battleships, and fast Nemeri attack fighters. In total, over 100,000 warships waited for the order to attack human space. Admiral Kim Soho stood in the command center of Earth's main defense station. She was a tall woman with short black hair and scars on her hands from her years as a fighter pilot. Through the big windows, she could see Earth below, blue and beautiful as always. "Admiral," her aide said, "we have the final count from our scouts. The Council fleet is 3 times bigger than we expected." Kim Soho nodded. She had expected this. "And our preparations?" "All colonies report ready. The last transport ships left yesterday." Kim Soho felt proud and sad at the same time. In just 3 weeks, humanity had done something impossible. They had evacuated 15 billion people from 47 different worlds. Every human colony was now empty except for the automated systems. Dr. Yoon Tae walked into the command center. He looked tired. He had been working day and night for weeks, helping to coordinate the evacuation. Before the crisis, he had been a respected scientist who worked with alien researchers. Now he was helping humanity prepare for war. "Doctor," Kim Soho said, "are you sure about the neural inhibitors?" Yoon Tae's face became angry. "I spent 5 years studying them with Council scientists. They told me they were for medical research, but I learned the truth when I saw the protocols they wanted to use on us." He pulled up a holographic display that showed a human brain. The inhibitors don't just control aggression. They change how we think. They make us slower, less creative, less willing to take risks. Over time, they would turn humans into a completely different species. Captain Nam Jisoo had been listening quietly in the corner. She was one of Earth's best fighter pilots and looked like she could take on an entire alien fleet by herself. So they want to make us weak and obedient. Exactly, Yoon-tae said. And the genetic controls would make sure our children and grandchildren would be even weaker. In a few generations, there would be nothing left of real humanity. Kim Soho looked out at Earth again. That's why we have to fight. Not just for ourselves, but for every human who will be born in the future. A communication officer called out from across the room. Admiral, we're getting reports from our deep space monitors. Something strange is happening in Council space. Kim Soho walked over to the communication station. What kind of strange? Trade ships are reporting problems with their navigation systems. Some long-range communication relays have gone offline, and there are unconfirmed reports of ships disappearing between star systems. Kim Soho and Nam Jisoo looked at each other. They both knew what this meant. It's starting, Nam Jisoo said. Kim Soho nodded. Send the signal, begin protocol blackout. Across human space, hidden transmitters sent a coded message to every human world. Within hours, all external communications stopped. Every human colony went completely silent. Trade with alien species ended immediately. Human ships disappeared from all the major space routes. From the outside, it looked like humanity had simply vanished. On the Council station, emergency meetings were happening every few hours. Council scouts reported that human worlds were still there, but no one was answering communication attempts. The colonies looked empty from space, but energy readings showed that power systems were still running. What are they doing? Demanded General Thox of the hegemony military. He was a large alien with 4 arms and a reputation for never losing a battle. Are they hiding? Are they preparing to surrender? High Arbitrator Velthok studied the reports with growing confusion. Our intelligence networks have completely lost contact with their sources in human space. It's as if every human simply stopped existing. What the Council didn't know was that humanity was very busy. On every human world, massive construction projects were happening at incredible speed. Factories that usually made civilian goods had been converted to military production. Ships were being built faster than ever before, and scientists were working on projects that would have seemed impossible just months ago. Dr. Yoon-tae had shared everything he knew about Council military technology. More importantly, he had explained the weaknesses in their thinking. Council species had been peaceful for so long that they had forgotten how to fight a real war. They expected their enemies to fight like they did, with honor, following rules, using predictable tactics. Humanity was about to teach them that not every species fought that way. On day 28, Ambassador Park Yuna sent a message to the Council. It was short and simple. The people of Earth have considered your ultimatum carefully. We have discussed it with our colonies and our military leaders. We have thought about what it would mean for humanity's future. The Council chamber was packed when the message was played. Every alien representative wanted to hear humanity's surrender. Park Yuna's image appeared on the main screen. She looked calm and confident. After much consideration, we have decided that we cannot accept the genetic compliance protocols. We refuse to allow neural inhibitors to be placed in our people. We refuse to limit our growth to 12 star systems. We refuse to submit to Council control over human reproduction. The chamber exploded in noise. Some aliens cheered. Others looked shocked. A few looked worried. Park Yuna continued speaking as if nothing had happened. Furthermore, humanity officially withdraws from the Galactic Council. We no longer recognize Council authority over human affairs. We will not participate in council trade, council diplomacy, or council civilization. Velthak stood up, his lizard face showing anger. Do you understand what you are doing? The council will be forced to take military action. Park Yuna smiled, for the first time in the message. High Arbitrator, you have made a mistake. You have treated humanity as a problem to be solved instead of a people to be understood. You have tried to change us instead of accepting us. This was your choice, not ours. She paused and looked directly into the camera. We are withdrawing from galactic civilization. Do not follow us. Do not try to find us. Do not make the mistake of thinking you know what we are capable of when we are truly threatened. The message ended. The council chamber was completely silent for a long moment. Then Velthak spoke, his voice full of anger and confidence. Very well. If humanity chooses to be destroyed rather than civilized, so be it. Launch Operation Restoration. Show the galaxy what happens to species that defy the Council. But as the Council fleet prepared to move into human space, strange reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Ships were disappearing. Communication relays were failing. Some colonies reported seeing strange vessels that appeared on no sensors. War hadn't officially started yet, but humanity was already fighting. And they were fighting in ways the Council had never seen before. Admiral Kim Soho watched the Council fleet begin to move toward human space. Let them come, she said quietly. They want to see what humans are really like when we stop trying to be civilized. They're about to get their wish. The galaxy was about to learn that some species couldn't be tamed. They could only be feared. The Council fleet moved through space, like a moving city of death. 100,000 warships from dozens of species, all heading toward human space. General Thox commanded the fleet from his massive flagship. He had fought in 12 different wars and had never lost a single battle. How long until we reach the first human system? Thox asked his navigation officer. 6 hours, General. Should we prepare for battle? Thox made a sound that might have been laughter. What battle? We are bringing the entire military might of the galaxy against one small species. They will surrender the moment they see us coming. But Thox was wrong. When the Council fleet reached the first human system, they found something they didn't expect. The planet was completely empty. Cities stood abandoned but undamaged. Spaceports were clean and organized, but no ships were there. It was like every human had simply vanished. Scan for life signs, Thox ordered. No biological life detected, General, but all the power systems are still running. The automated factories are still working. It's like they just left. Admiral Kess of the Valian Navy floated next to Thox on the bridge. The Valians were fish-like creatures that lived in water tanks. This is strange, General. Why would they abandon their colonies? Where did they go? Thox studied the empty planet below. They're hiding somewhere, probably in the outer systems. We'll find them. The Council fleet moved deeper into human space. Every world they found was the same, empty but intact. 47 star systems, all abandoned. 15 billion humans had simply disappeared. Commander Seo Huan watched the Council fleet from his hiding place in an asteroid field. His ship was small and painted black to blend in with space. He had been a guerrilla fighter on Earth during the border wars and knew how to fight enemies that were bigger and stronger. Target their supply ships first, he told his crew. A big army needs lots of food and fuel. Take that away and they become weak. Seo Huan's ship moved silently through the asteroid field toward a Council supply convoy. The convoy had 12 cargo ships protected by 6 warships. The Council crews felt safe because their sensors showed nothing nearby. They were wrong. Seo Huan's ship appeared from behind a large asteroid and fired missiles at the cargo ships. The missiles hit their targets and several ships exploded. Before the escort ships could react, Seo Huan's ship disappeared back into the asteroid field. What happened? Demanded the convoy commander. Where did that attack come from? Unknown, sir. Our sensors detected nothing until the missiles hit. Find them! Search every asteroid! But when the escort ships searched the asteroid field, they found nothing. Co. Juan's ship was already gone, moving toward its next target. Captain O'Meara commanded humanity's most advanced stealth ship. The Silent Wind was built using technology that bent light and energy around it, making it almost impossible to detect. She had been hunting Council ships for 3 days now. Target acquired, her weapons officer reported. Council battleship, traveling alone. O'Meara studied the enemy ship on her screen. It was 10 times bigger than her ship and carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Under normal circumstances, attacking it would be suicide. These weren't normal circumstances. Fire quantum torpedoes, full spread. The torpedoes appeared from nowhere and struck the battleship's engines. The massive ship lost power and began drifting helplessly. O'Meara's ship appeared briefly next to the battleship, fired more weapons, and then vanished again. The battleship's captain sent desperate messages to the rest of the fleet. "We're under attack! Enemy ship unknown! We can't track them!" But by the time help arrived, O'Meara was already attacking another target 50 light-years away. General Thox was becoming frustrated. In 5 days, he had lost 47 ships. Supply convoys were being destroyed, patrol ships were disappearing, communication relays were going offline, and his fleet hadn't seen a single human ship clearly enough to identify it. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Our sensors are the best in the galaxy." His science officer, a small gray alien with large eyes, looked nervous. "General, we think they're using some kind of technology we've never seen before. Their ships seem to exist in multiple quantum states at once. They're not just invisible. They're existing in a state of quantum uncertainty." Thox didn't understand the science, but he understood what it meant. "So we can't track them?" "Not with our current technology. No, sir." Admiral Kess swam anxiously in her tank. "General, my scouts report similar attacks throughout the entire fleet. We've lost ships in 17 different systems simultaneously. That should be impossible." General Lim Wook coordinated the human attacks from a hidden command center. He was an old man with gray hair and smart eyes who had studied Council military tactics for decades. He knew their weaknesses better than they did. "The Council species haven't fought a real war in 300 years, he told his officers. "They're used to polite battles with rules and honor. They expect enemies to fight fair and follow predictable patterns." "And we're not going to do that," said one of his commanders. "Exactly. We're going to fight like humans have always fought when we're desperate. We're going to be unpredictable, ruthless, and everywhere at once." Lim Wook pointed to a large star map. "Phase 1 is working perfectly. We've destroyed their supply lines and made them afraid to travel alone. Now we begin Phase 2. "What's Phase 2? Asked another officer. Lim Wook smiled grimly. "We make them understand that they're not hunting us. We're hunting them." The Council fleet began to spread out, trying to search multiple systems at once. This was exactly what Lim Wook wanted. When the enemy divided their forces, they became easier to destroy. Human attack groups began hitting larger targets. Co. Juan led an assault on a Council command ship. O'Meara destroyed an entire communications array. Other human ships attacked fuel depots, weapon storage facilities, and repair stations. But the humans never stayed to fight. They would appear suddenly, strike hard, and disappear before the Council could respond. It was like fighting ghosts. "We need to change our strategy," Admiral Kess told General Thox. "This isn't working." Thox's forearms were clenched in frustration. "What do you suggest? Our orders are to force human compliance. We can't do that if we can't find them." "Maybe we should withdraw and ask the Council for new orders." "Withdraw?" Thox's voice was full of anger. "The greatest military force in galactic history does not withdraw from one small species. We will find them and destroy them." But deep down, Thox was beginning to understand something that scared him. The humans weren't fighting like any species he had encountered before. They weren't trying to hold territory or protect specific locations. They were fighting like predators, and his massive fleet was becoming their prey. On the 10th day of the invasion, Thox received a message on his personal communication channel. This should have been impossible. The channel was encrypted and known only to high-ranking council officials. The message was simple. General Thox, you have entered human space without permission. You have 10 days to leave. This is your only warning. Humanity. Thox stared at the message. How had they gotten access to his private channel? How did they know his name? Where were they sending the message from? He deleted the message and tried to forget about it. But he couldn't shake the feeling that invisible eyes were watching his every move. The hunt had begun, and General Thox was starting to realize that he might not be the hunter. The war had been going on for 2 months now, but it wasn't really a war anymore. It was a nightmare that spread across the entire galaxy. Council space, which had been safe and peaceful for centuries, was now a place of fear and uncertainty. Captain On-Q led a small group of human ships deep into Council territory. They were thousands of light years from human space, attacking targets that should have been completely safe. His mission was simple: make the Council understand that nowhere in the galaxy was beyond human reach. Target identified, his navigation officer reported. Zenthari Communications Relay Station, heavily defended. On-Q studied the station on his screen. It was massive, with thick armor and dozens of weapon platforms. Under normal circumstances, attacking it would require a fleet of battleships. Begin. Quantum insertion, On-Q ordered. His ship seemed to flicker and become transparent. This was humanity's greatest secret, technology that let their ships exist in quantum superposition. They could be in multiple places at once, making them impossible to target until they chose to become solid again. The ship passed through the station's shields like they weren't there. The quantum drive let them ignore most physical barriers. They appeared inside the station's main reactor chamber and fired a single torpedo. The torpedo didn't explode. Instead, it released a quantum virus that infected the station's computer systems. Within minutes, every system on the station shut down. The lights went out. The defenses stopped working. Communication equipment failed. On-Q's ship became transparent again and disappeared, leaving behind a dead station floating in space. Engineer Bei Hana had designed the quantum systems that made these attacks possible. She was a small woman with quick hands and a brilliant mind. Before the war, she had been studying theoretical physics at Earth's best university. Now she was creating weapons that seemed impossible. The quantum uncertainty field lets us exist in multiple probability states, she explained to a group of military officers. Our ships aren't just invisible. They're existing in quantum superposition until we choose to observe ourselves into reality. Can you explain that in simpler terms? Asked one officer. Bei Hana thought for a moment. Imagine you're playing hide-and-seek, but instead of hiding in one place, you're hiding in every possible place at once. Your enemies can't find you because you're everywhere and nowhere until you decide to appear. And this works on their weapons too? Exactly. They can't shoot what they can't observe, and they can't observe us until we let them. Colonel Park Jin was in charge of psychological warfare operations. He understood that fear could be a more powerful weapon than any bomb or missile. His job was to make the Council species understand that humanity was something they should never have challenged. Begin Operation Ghost Protocol, he told his team. Across Council space, impossible things started happening. Messages began appearing on every communication network simultaneously. The messages couldn't be blocked, couldn't be traced, and couldn't be stopped. They appeared on military networks, civilian broadcasts, personal communication devices, and even on the screens of ships in deep space. The message was always the same. You wanted to change us. Instead, you have revealed what we truly are. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that the messages appeared in the native language of each species, including languages that humans weren't supposed to know, and each message was personally addressed to the person reading it. Admiral Kess received a message on her private tank display. Admiral Kess of the Valian Navy, your people swim in shallow waters. We swim in the deep ocean of space itself. Stop following us into the depths. General Thox found a message carved into the metal wall of his private quarters. General Thox, you have won 12 battles against civilized enemies. We are not civilized. We are something older and more dangerous. High Arbitrator Velthak discovered that every screen in the council chambers was showing the same message. Velthak of the Zenthari, you rule a council of the weak. We are what the weak fear in the Yea, darkness between stars. The psychological effect was devastating. If humans could reach anyone, anywhere, at any time, what did that mean for galactic civilization? Council species began to panic. Some started building isolated defense systems. Others withdrew their ships from the joint fleet. The Nemeri were the first to officially withdraw from the war effort. They were a small, peaceful species that had only joined the Council for protection. We cannot fight an enemy that exists everywhere and nowhere, their representative announced. The Nemeri, people choose neutrality. The Corvan Empire was next. They were proud warriors, but even they recognized when a fight was hopeless. The humans fight like demons from our oldest legends, their war leader declared. We will not sacrifice our people in this madness. More species began to withdraw, some publicly, others quietly. The Great Council alliance was falling apart. Meanwhile, human ships continued to appear throughout Council space. They destroyed military installations, disabled communication networks, and made supply runs impossible. But they never attacked civilian targets or killed anyone who wasn't actively fighting them. Why don't they attack our cities? Asked Admiral Kess during an emergency strategy meeting. General Thox had been thinking about the same question. Because they want to show us that they could if they wanted to. They're demonstrating their power, not trying to commit genocide. That's almost worse, said a hegemony commander. If they were trying to destroy us, we could understand it. But this is like being hunted by something that sees us as insects. Dr. Yun Tae had returned to his old job of analyzing alien psychology, but now he was helping humanity understand their enemies instead of working with them. The Council species have lived in peace for so long that they've forgotten what real warfare looks like, he reported to Human Command. They're not prepared for an enemy that doesn't follow their rules. What rules? Asked Admiral Kim Soho. Rules like not attacking supply lines, not striking behind enemy lines, not using psychological warfare, and always fighting fair battles where both sides have an equal chance. Humans have never followed those rules because we've had to fight for survival, Kim Soho said. These species have been protected by the Council for centuries. They've forgotten what it's like to face extinction. Exactly. And now they're facing an enemy that has been shaped by millions of years of evolution on a dangerous world. We're not just fighting a war, we're demonstrating the difference between a civilized species and a survival species. The quantum attacks were becoming more sophisticated. Human ships were now appearing inside Council facilities, delivering their messages or sabotage and disappearing again. The Council's best scientists couldn't figure out how to stop them. It's like they've weaponized the uncertainty principle itself, one Zenthari physicist reported. They're using quantum mechanics to break the normal rules of space and time. Fear spread through Council space like a disease. Trade routes became unsafe. Communication networks were unreliable. Military movements were constantly being observed and reported by invisible human scouts. The galaxy was learning that there were worse things than war. There was being hunted by something you couldn't see, couldn't predict, and couldn't fight. On the Council station, emergency meetings were happening every day. The representatives who remained were desperate to find a solution. We could surrender, suggested the Alterian delegate. Surrender to whom? Velthak demanded. We don't even know where they are. How do you surrender to an enemy that exists? In quantum superposition? Maybe we could negotiate, said another representative. They already refused to negotiate. That's how this whole situation started. Velthak looked around the chamber at the half-empty seats. More than half the council. Species had withdrawn from the alliance. The rest looked scared and defeated. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Council was facing the possibility of complete collapse. And it was all because they had tried to control a species that couldn't be controlled. The humans had shown them something terrifying. What happened when you tried to change something that was meant to be free? 6 months had passed since the Council gave humanity their ultimatum. The greatest military force in galactic history had been reduced to scattered groups of frightened ships hiding in deep space. General Thox sat alone in his command chamber, staring at reports that made no sense. His fleet had lost over 30,000 ships, not destroyed in battle, simply gone. Ships would report normal status one moment and then disappear completely the next. Sometimes they reappeared days later, drifting empty in space with no crew aboard. The crew members were never found. General, his communications officer called out nervously. We're receiving a transmission on all frequencies. Another human message? Thox asked tiredly. No, sir. This one is different. A new voice filled the command center. It was calm, confident, and completely unfamiliar. I am President Yang Minji of the United Human Federation. I am speaking to all council forces currently in our territory. Thox sat up straight. This was the first time any human leader had identified themselves since the war began. For 6 months, you have hunted us through our own space. You came here to force us to accept your control. You believed that your numbers and technology would make us submit to your will. The voice paused, and Thox could hear the sounds of activity in the background. People working, machines humming, the normal sounds of a busy command center. You were wrong. We are not the species you thought we were. We are not weak. We are not defenseless. And we are definitely not helpless. Admiral Kess swam anxiously in her tank. General, are you recording this? Thox nodded, but he was focused on the message. Something about the human president's voice made him nervous. But this war has gone on long enough. It's time for you to understand the truth about why we refused your ultimatum. It's time for you to learn what we were really preparing for. The transmission changed to show images, star charts, deep space telescope readings, and scientific data that made Thox's blood run cold. 47 years ago, our deep space monitors detected something approaching our galaxy. Something big, something hostile, something that will arrive in approximately 53 years. The images showed a massive fleet of unknown ships moving through the empty space between galaxies. They were still millions of light years away, but they were clearly heading toward the Milky Way. We call them the Devourers. We don't know what they are or where they come from, but we know what they do to galaxies they encounter. They consume everything, every planet, every star, every living thing. More images appeared. Dead galaxies with no stars, no planets, nothing but empty space, where entire civilizations had once existed. When we discovered them, we realized that our galaxy had maybe 60 years to prepare for their arrival. We began expanding rapidly, building military technology, and developing new defensive strategies. We weren't trying to conquer anyone. We were trying to save everyone. Thox felt sick. If this was true, then the Council had been completely wrong about everything. The neural inhibitors you wanted to place in our brains would have crippled our ability to adapt and innovate. The genetic controls would have weakened future generations. You were asking us to make ourselves helpless just when the galaxy needed us to be strongest. Admiral Kim Soho's voice joined the transmission. Our rapid expansion wasn't aggression. It was preparation. Every world we settled became a fortress. Every ship we built became a weapon. Every human we trained became a defender. The images changed again to show human space as it really was. The abandoned colonies weren't empty at all. They had been transformed into massive mobile fortresses, capable of faster-than-light travel. Humanity hadn't evacuated their worlds. They had turned their entire civilization into a fleet. We became nomadic, President Yang continued. Every human world can now move through space. We are no longer tied to specific star systems. We can appear anywhere in the galaxy at any time. This explained everything, how human ships could be everywhere at once, how they could appear deep in Council space without traveling through the intervening territory. Humanity had turned their entire species into a space-traveling civilization. Our quantum technology allows us to exist in superposition, to be in multiple places at once until we choose to become solid. This isn't just a military advantage. It's how we plan to fight the Devourers when they arrive. Dr. Yunte's voice joined the transmission. The Council wanted to control us because you were afraid of our potential. But that potential is the galaxy's only hope of survival. Every aggressive trait you wanted to suppress is actually an adaptation that will be necessary in the coming war. President Yang's voice became serious. The Devourers don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They don't show mercy. The only way to fight them is with everything we have, using every advantage we can develop. The Council's way of thinking, careful, peaceful, regulated, will get everyone killed. Ambassador Park Yuna appeared on the screen for the first time since the war began. She looked older and more tired, but her eyes were still sharp. We tried to work within the Council system, she said. We tried to warn you about the threat. But you saw our preparations as aggression instead of necessity. You chose to view us as a problem to be solved instead of an ally to be trusted. The transmission switched back to President Yang. So we withdrew from your civilization. We stopped playing by your rules. We showed you what humanity looks like when we stopped trying to be the species you wanted us to be. General Thox realized that his hands were shaking. Everything the Council had done was not just wrong. It was catastrophically stupid. But the galaxy is running out of time, President Yang continued. In 53 years, the Devourers will arrive. When they do, every species in this galaxy will face extinction, including yours. The screen showed a new image, a star map of the entire galaxy with projected attack routes and defensive positions. We can fight them, but not alone. We need every species, every ship, every mind working together. We need the Council's resources, the Zenthari's manufacturing, the Valian's navigation skills, the Corvan's warrior spirit. We need everyone. Admiral, Kess swam closer to her tank's viewing port. What are they proposing? We are offering you a choice, President Yang said, as if she had heard the question. You can continue this pointless war until we're all too weak to face the real threat. Or you can accept that humanity is not your enemy. We are your best hope for survival. The transmission paused, and when it resumed, President Yang's voice was softer but more intense. We will never again submit to Council control. We will never accept genetic limitations or neural inhibitors. We will never go back to being the weak, manageable species you wanted us to become. That version of humanity would be useless against the Devourers. But we will work with you as equals. We will share our technology. We will help you prepare your defenses. We will stand with you when the darkness comes. The screen showed images of possible futures. Council and human ships fighting side by side, massive defensive installations protecting every inhabited world, entire species working together to build weapons that could stop the Devourers. The choice is yours, President Yang concluded. You can have us as enemies in a meaningless war or as allies in the fight for galactic survival. But choose quickly. The clock is running, and extinction waits for no one. The transmission ended, leaving General Thox staring at a blank screen. Around him, his command staff looked stunned and confused. General, Admiral Kess said quietly, what do we do now? Thox was quiet for a long moment. Everything he thought he knew about the war had been wrong. Humanity hadn't been the aggressor. They had been preparing to save everyone. "We send a message to the Council," he said finally. "Tell them that General Thox recommends immediate cessation of hostilities and emergency negotiations with the human government." "Sir, we've been fighting the wrong war," Thox said. "While we've been trying to control humanity, they've been preparing to save us all. It's time to stop being their enemy and start being their ally." 3 days later, emergency sessions began on the Council station. For the first time in galactic history, the Council was meeting with a species as true equals, not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. The galaxy had learned that some forces couldn't be controlled or contained. They could only be respected. And sometimes those forces were the only thing standing between civilization and complete destruction. Humanity had shown them what they truly were. Not conquerors, but guardians. Not the galaxy's greatest threat, but its greatest hope. The real war was still coming. But now, finally, everyone would fight it together.